So I hope after all these videos that you're ready to dive in and get going on some real programming. Before we do that, I just wanted to discuss what the homework is and maybe help you a little bit so that you feel ready to go. So first, just on the website, if you go to the syllabus, you'll see that there are 3 homework assignments for this lesson 1. And the first one is a number of questions. And so they should be pretty self-explanatory. All the questions come from the topics we discussed in the lessons. So I hope that you're able to do those without too much problem. I hope that they're not just completely easy and that you have to think about them a little bit. Some of them might be easier than others. But anyway, if you'll just do that, then there's also this assignment. It's the tip calculator. And then there's the GPA calculator, which is optional. But I'll talk about the tip calculator first. So I have in this document a couple things that you need to do. So first, just to set it up, you're going to have to fork the repository, you're going to have to clone it, and then you're going to have to change your directory in the terminal. And I'll do all of that in this video so that you can see. And then here I have the requirements. So what should the program do? Well, this is what it should do. So that's what you're trying to write your program to. It's the specification. So that's that. And then I'll try to give some tips, things that I think might be little gotchas. I'll try to point those out. The GPA calculator is the same. I didn't provide as much detail on the setup because that was already in the tip calculator. The requirements section is also here. I provided a little bit more in the requirements because I think this one's a little bit harder. And then again, I've got some tips. So first I'm just going to go through this setup process and then there's a file in this repository that I want to go over. So this is a link to the repository. So this is GitHub. You should have watched the GitHub video already. So I'm going to fork this repository. So you click this button and it's forking. Shouldn't take too long. Then I'm going to grab this URL. I'm going to copy it to my clipboard. I'm going to come over to my terminal. And I just have a terminal here. I don't have the terminal and the text editor because I think I've done this in a video already where I just use them all in the same thing. So then I'm going to say git clone and I'm going to paste in that repository. And you notice that this has my username right here. Whereas when we were looking at it before, it does have my username in lesson 1, but when we were looking at it here, it was PG Programming lesson 1. So it's a little bit different. So then I'm just going to push enter. It's going to do all the work. It's going to clone. Then if ls is a command where I can print out my working directory, my current directory. So in this I've got all these files. You'll recognize some of these files from previous lessons. But right here I've got lesson 1. That was the name of this repository. So when I clone, it's saying it's cloning it into lesson 1. So what I want to do is I want to change my directory into lesson 1. Now I'm there. Now if I do an ls here, I'll see some different files. Every one of these has a readme. You'll recognize that from, it's basically just this file. That's the name of it right here, readme.md. Oh, sorry. So you'll recognize that's the same file. Then you've got GPA calculator and tip calculator. So if we look at these, so let's look at tip calculator. So this just has a few small things in it. I wouldn't really even call them tips because I'm sure that you could get to this point very quickly. But it's just kind of something to get you started. Then if we look at the GPA calculator, then this one has a lot more in it. So this one's actually like a small working example of what it could look like. I'm only using one class, and I'm only trying to track A or A minus. And so anyway, that's kind of what this is. We can run these programs. So it's saying, what grade did you get in biology? I'll say an A, and it says my GPA is a 4.0. And then we can also run the tip calculator, and it's just going to print out a bunch of stuff. So not really helpful. You're going to have to change those to work the way that they should based on these requirements that I have here. So what I want to do now is just go over, I've written a program already, and this is a fully functioning program. I guess I'll run it first. So it's going to say, and you see that it cleared the screen. I've got a few things in here that's a little bit fancy. So it's saying, hello, what is your name? My name is Reed. It's a pleasure to meet you, Reed. Your name is 4 characters long. How old are you? I am 26. Have you already had a birthday this year? Yes, I have. I know what year you were born in. It was 1989, and that's correct. So now let's look at it. So this has a lot of things in it. You probably don't care to do all of it, but you can use whatever you want from this program for yours. There's a few things in here that we haven't talked about yet, so I'm just going to kind of gloss over those. So first off, we've got, you can ignore this comment at the beginning, but then we've got these imports. And basically all these do is these imports pull in a bunch of code so that I can get some extra functionality. So this is OS, or operating system, and this is sys, or system. These are two really important modules that I'll use, and you'll see that I use them right here in various places. And they're really helpful, but don't worry about it. You can use it the exact same way that I'm using it, but don't worry about trying to understand what it's doing at this point. I've got comments littered throughout this, so you should be able to easily see what everything's doing. So you notice at the very beginning of that program that I cleared the console screen. This is how I did it. And the only reason I can do this is because I'm using this OS module. Then I say, hello, what is your name? And I noticed that I have 2 spaces here, and I have an extra comma at the end of this print statement. That's just kind of a little quirky thing about the print function. If you put a comma at the end of it, then it adds a space instead of a new line. You may have noticed every other time we use print, it would print this message and then do a new line. And when you put a comma here, it makes it so that it's not a new line. I could have just put that same message in this raw input string, but I didn't. So I'm storing the name from that raw input command. So let's say, hello, what is your name? And then when they type in their name and press enter, I store that result in name. Then the other thing I should mention is this /n. That's how you can actually print out a new line. So there are certain characters when you're using computers that are not actually visible. Like this /n does not print out as a /n. It actually just, it's like pressing enter. So it's like I pressed enter first and then typed all this. So I hope that makes sense. It's called a new line character. So essentially I'm saying it is a pleasure to meet you, and then I concatenate that with name, and then I put another new line. So then I say, I calculate how long their name is, and I'm using the len function. So I hope this is all kind of a review, and you can kind of look at this and see what I'm doing here. Again, I'm using the print function instead of just putting it into the raw input function. I would suggest that you just put it into the raw input function. I do it later. I do it right here. But I'm just showing you some things here. So raw input doesn't require that you give it a message, but it's a good idea. Then I ask if they already had a birthday this year, and I'm expecting, you see here, I'm expecting a Y or an N. So, and I'm switching on that here. So I'm saying if past birthday, which should be a Y or an N, equals a Y, then say that past birthday is true. If it's an N, say that it's false, And if it's something else, say, I didn't understand your response. We didn't see this part of the program. But then it says press enter to quit. And this is something you don't need to know about right now either. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the console screen again and then exit. So these two things you don't really need to worry about. They're just more of that module stuff I mentioned at the beginning of this program. But then if they say that they already had a past birthday, then I'm going to do some special logic here. And this is something else that this is an inline if statement. So it's a little fancy, but I just wanted to show you how there might be some times where you only want one thing in your if statement. So you're saying if it's a past birthday, no, sorry, it's 0 if it's a past birthday, otherwise it's 1. So it's a little bit different than our previous if, like we see up here. But it's something that's a little handy because I'm able to do this whole expression in one statement. Let's see. So that's pretty much it. So I hope that that's helpful. This file has a few things in it. I hope it's not too complicated. I hope that you can use these things in your program, and then it gives you an idea of how you can solve the TIP calculator and the GPA calculator. Of course, if you have any questions, I would love to have you contact me and meet with me so that we can solve any of your problems that you're facing. And anyway, hope that helps.